The tale begins in a post-apocalyptic world, with menacing monsters surrounding an individual who finds their presence irritating. His purpose is to locate a runaway individual who, unfortunately, met their demise at the hands of these creatures. It's clear that the monsters were given a poorly chosen name. However, the protagonist becomes their new target, prompting the activation of his formidable skill set involving addition and multiplication. With swift precision, the protagonist eliminates the monsters and proceeds towards the base. Upon arrival, he was greeted by GM, a hard player. Kang expresses discontent with his duty of pursuing runaway players, but acknowledges that no one is better suited for the task than the protagonist. When inquired about the player they were searching for, Kang reveals that they were devoured by 3 A-class monsters. Learning of this revelation shocks GM, as A-class monsters are formidable adversaries on par with hard-mode players. Concerned about the potential threat these monsters pose, he seeks to know their location, only to discover that the protagonist has already dispatched them all. GM still harbors doubts about the protagonist's true ability as an easy-mode player. Kang suggests he consult with those who have ventured through the labyrinth alongside him to resolve his doubts. However, all the easy-mode players have perished, and even those who joined them met their demise within a day or two. Kang, despite being an easy-mode player, has managed to survive thus far, proving his resilience. In comparison, GM, a hard player, pales in comparison to Kang. Kang attributes their weakness to their careless completion of the tutorial. Inside the dining hall, Kang expresses dissatisfaction with the repetitive meal of potatoes. GM explains that potatoes are the most efficient food source and cultivation has its limitations. Curious, GM asks if Kang has acquired any cultivation skills. Kang clarifies that, due to being in easy mode, food was abundant and easily obtainable. As they dine, quarreling outside grabs their attention. Another individual has arrived after completing the tutorial. While they initially expected this person to be suppressed, he appears to be a hard-mode player. Overcoming those who tried to stop him, the newcomer refuses to accept the harsh reality. In response, Kang decides to intervene. Before doing so, he warns GM not to eat his portion of potatoes, highlighting the scarcity of resources. The new player refuses to accept Earth's current state. There seems to be only one way to bring the newcomer to their senses: defeating them. Accepting the challenge, the opponent underestimates Kang, believing him to be an easy player who merely talks a lot in communities. Kang vows to show the world he envisions if he emerges victorious. Enraged by this taunt, the new player activates their skill and launches an attack. However, Kang nullifies the first attack with his own skill, catching the blade. Surprised by this turn of events, the opponent is then struck by Kang's counterattack, albeit with minimal damage of 49 points. Such is the difference between easy mode and hard mode players. Kang, having confirmed his opponent's health exceeds 10,000, unleashes multiple skills, landing a powerful blow. Finally, the opponent acknowledges reality and breaks down in tears. In a peaceful world, a cataclysmic event occurred, shattering the sky and unleashing destructive monsters that ravage everything. In the face of this devastation, humans were given a choice: to enter the labyrinth and select their desired difficulty level. Upon completing the labyrinth and returning to Earth, they discovered a world overrun by monsters, teetering on the brink of destruction. Left with no alternative, they had to continue the fight. GM commended Kang for his remarkable victory. While Kang dismissed his triumph as unimpressive against weak opponents, the truth was that he possessed extraordinary strength. GM was impressed by his skills and inquired about their origin. Kang attributed his skills to hard work, acknowledging that he was the only one who had attained them. As they conversed, resources poured into their base. The renowned player who had swiftly cleared the solo mode, Lee Tae-yoon, had returned. Despite the circumstances, she still focused on collecting decorations and antiques. Intrigued by Kang's defeat of a hard-level player, she found it perplexing. Displaying her own stats, she requested to see Kang's. Feeling that she was boasting, Kang asked whether she wanted to challenge him to a fight. However, she simply wished to examine his stats. The disparity in power between players who cleared the labyrinth was vast. The hard-level players had higher stats than Kang, yet they couldn't withstand even a single strike from him due to his unique skills. She launched a full-power attack on him, but he emerged unscathed, with approximately 230 skills. Kang possessed formidable abilities. She lamented the fact that they had focused on clearing the labyrinth rather than fully grasping their potential. However, that was all in the past. If Kang had cleared the solo mode, they might have had a chance, although Kang's skills were formidable. Most of them relied on his stats, preventing him from utilizing half of his skills. Kang diverted the conversation and inquired about her scouting results. The next wave of monster attacks was imminent, and numerous lives would be lost. With the territory shrinking significantly, Seoul had already been lost in the first wave, followed by the decimation of half the hard-level players in the second wave. By the third wave, they could only defend a small city. And now the fourth wave was about to commence. 2 S-class monsters, dozens of A-class monsters, hundreds of B-class monsters, and the Apostle would be part of this wave. The Apostle was stronger than S-class monsters, and even Lee Tae-yoon couldn't handle them along with the 2 S-class creatures. She asked Kang to deal with the 2 S-class monsters while she confronted the Apostle. She inquired whether they should make an announcement or not. Kang opted to announce it, both to mentally prepare everyone and to prevent them from dying without knowledge of the impending danger. Kang then departed, leaving her with the belief that he could lead them to victory, as she regarded herself as nothing more than a coward, clutching a purple stone. The following day, many players were filled with sadness and apprehension regarding the upcoming battle. GM, relieved to have survived this long, pitied the new player who had arrived the previous day and had been ordered to sacrifice himself upon returning. If only they had put in at least half the effort Kang had in the labyrinth, they might have survived. Kang felt frustrated by this thought. Finally, the next wave of monsters arrived. GM hoped he would meet Kang in the afterlife, utilizing his great leap skill. Kang leapt high into the air and employed his scouting skill to locate the 2 S-rank monsters' whereabouts. He swiftly made his way there, ready to face the formidable foes. The debuffs from the monsters had no effect on him as he entered into battle. Hoping that neither of the monsters would be of the defense type, he faced them. But his wishes were disregarded. One of the monsters turned out to be a defense type, one with 1 point per million HP, and the other with ranged defense with 1.25 HP. He attacked the ranged monster's tentacles, but it didn't take much damage, so he shifted his aim to its head. Analyzing the tentacles, he discovered that they could only shoot in the direction they pointed, and there were numerous tentacles. With this knowledge, he predicted and dodged every attack, utilizing his speed. He launched relentless attacks and nullified any damage using his skills. Witnessing the ranged defense monster in a desperate situation, the defense monster came to its aid. Anticipating this, Kang activated his force dual skill with the defense monster. If Lee Tae-yoon were present, it would have been easier since she possessed natural stats and legendary equipment from clearing the solo mode. Kang used his skill to boost his power. The offensive monster should be defeated first, but with his low stats, it didn't matter which type it was, he would have lost. He focused on attacking the monster with lower stamina, gradually wearing it down, and eventually defeated the defense monster with precise strikes. He nullified all the damage and continued his onslaught, evading attacks to defeat the last monster. The gods were astonished by his achievements. Fighting in this place for months, he decided to return home despite his injuries. The area was littered with the corpses of his comrades. Even after winning, he felt empty. Realizing that everything had turned out just as his friend GM had said, he looked at GM's lifeless body and then turned to see Lee Tae-yoon's corpse. wondering which monster had killed the strongest woman on Earth. Before him appeared the Apostle, a liquid-type monster, and the system indicated his impending death. He embarked on his final battle with the Apostle. No matter how hard he tried, the Apostle effortlessly defeated him and delivered a fatal blow, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. His forced survival skill would keep him alive for the next minute, but he couldn't feel anything below his waist. The skill only delayed his execution. It didn't heal him. In a minute, he would meet the same fate as Lee Tae-yoon. If only he hadn't chosen the easy mode back then, even the normal mode would have been acceptable. No. It was the fault of his useless comrades who focused on clearing rather than building their strength. If they had put in at least half the effort he had, they might have emerged victorious. There was no point in blaming others now. Humanity's end was at hand. As he was on the verge of closing his eyes, he noticed the monster trying to protect a magic crystal in Lee Tae-yoon's hand. Summoning his last reserves, he used his final skill to halt time around him and approach the stone. The Ouroboros stone had the power to rewind time for one person. He wondered why she had possessed this stone. When a monster attempted to stop him, he activated the stone. As a child, Kang had been his parents' source of stress relief, constantly belittled and made to believe he was worthless. But now that he understood his worth, everything would change. He opened his eyes and found himself back in his room. Before the invasion, on January 1, 2020, the exact moment when the new year began and the Earth's destruction ensued. Instead of potatoes, he was grateful to have a pizza. He wondered why Lee Tae-yoon hadn't used the stone until the end. If it were her, she would have used it to escape the moment she was in danger. The world was approaching its final moments, counting down to the new year, hoping for a better future. Sadly, the world would end simultaneously with the new year's arrival. The sky tore apart, and the monsters emerged. This time, he was not bewildered. It was merely a B-rank monster, easily defeatable by a hard player. At that moment, a system message appeared, stating that the invaders would destroy their world. A compassionate being, sympathizing with their plight, offered them a chance. They could choose the difficulty and clear the labyrinth to obtain power. However, Kang knew they were merely amused by their suffering. Undeterred, he stood before the labyrinth, ready to face its challenges. Easy mode. Abundant food supplies and resting places scattered throughout the maze. Even ordinary and weak individuals can clear this mode with some effort. Normal mode. Food will be scarce, and resting spots will be significantly fewer than in easy mode. Hard mode. This mode tests their limits. Food and rest spots are extremely scarce. Solo mode. This mode requires individuals to rely solely on themselves. They won't encounter anyone other than monsters, adversaries, and NPCs. It's a place that tests luck, talent, wisdom, and strategy. Survival here is nearly impossible. Kang selected the solo mode and entered the labyrinth. Arriving in a desolate place, he felt a sense of nostalgia. He encountered a post in the community, the only window for conversations with people from different difficulties. It had been a great help when others shared their strategies, although it would be more helpful in the later stages. He remembered his conversation with Lee Tae-yoon, who explained that in the easy mode, NPCs had repetitive behaviors, but in solo mode, they possessed intelligence and moved freely, resembling real people. He encountered a new gatekeeper, different from the one in easy mode, and much stronger than Lee Tae-yoon. The gatekeeper introduced himself as Brokenman, a failed challenger who had become a gatekeeper. Brokenman considered the merciful being that created this labyrinth to be repulsive and welcomed the prospect of his suffering coming to an end. The NPCs in the labyrinth were truly alive, originating from a world destroyed by the monsters. Brokenman was amused by Kang's calmness, expecting him to react like the others, and had initially planned to beat him up to explain things. He described the labyrinth as consisting of 100 floors, with significant changes occurring every 10 floors as one progresses deeper. The challenges become increasingly difficult. Kang would have to find food and other necessary items on his own and seek answers from the people inside who were selling things. Recalling the gatekeeper's bad temper, Kang decided to remain silent. Broken Man held a dagger close to Kang's neck, yet Kang remained unperturbed. Broken Man provided him with some items and allowed him to enter the gate. Broken Man was astonished to witness Kang's excitement about entering the maze. Having encountered numerous geniuses who had failed to conquer it, seeing Kang's determination to survive, Broken Man hoped that he would be able to clear the labyrinth. The maze had been created by a wizard long ago, and rumors circulated that it would grant a person's wish upon completion. It was a prison filled with terrifying entities, where everything exists to oppress Kang. The one who triumphed over this dark abyss would attain eternal glory. Kang entered the first maze and the main quest was initiated. This place was brimming with secret pots, and rewards awaited those who cleared them. He embarked on his quest. On each floor, there was a merchant, but in solo mode. They offered more items with incredible effects. Unfortunately, Lee Tae-yun didn't have enough gold to purchase them all. He pushed aside thoughts of the past and encountered the Lost King. The Lost King found amusement in Kang's state of mind. The shelves were empty, and when asked about the items, the Lost King explained that displaying them would require more space than the entire first floor, and he preferred not to show his items to others. He had ended up there after being driven out of his own kingdom by the monsters. He showed Kang a door and offered to sell his items on the condition that Kang survived there. The Lost King found Kang's brave character amusing but was certain he wouldn't return alive. While walking through the tunnel, Kang encountered a large rat monster. In easy mode, it was the boss monster on the 5th floor. But here it was just a regular monster, highlighting the difference in difficulty. The rat had weak defense but moved at a speed that was challenging to track. In easy mode, players had to cooperate to exhaust it by driving it back and forth until it grew tired. Given his low stats, winning against it seemed impossible. It was no wonder Lee Tae-yun had run away, and none of the solo players who had cleared the first floor had dared to challenge the big rat. The maze's reward system was straightforward. Achieve what others couldn't and accomplish feats that were universally recognized. The reward would match the accomplishment. Kang's goal was to become stronger than anyone else in the labyrinth, but he couldn't keep up with the rat's speed. His only option was to predict its movements. Every living creature had preliminary movements before taking action, such as contracting leg muscles. Kang observed the rat doing just that and attacked. Intimidated by Kang, the rat's thinking ability diminished. Kang used his wristband to catch the rat and immobilized it, allowing him to stab it repeatedly. In the solo mode, the store owner known as the Lost King always carried an air of arrogance among the other players. Despite their desire to defeat him, they lacked the strength to do so. He was shocked when Kang returned alive, carrying valuable loot. Doubts arose in the Lost King's mind as he examined the loot's quality. Could it be that the big rat had simply allowed Kang to kill it without a struggle? The meat and skin were pristine, indicating a perfect catch. No new player had achieved such a feat before. The Lost King agreed to open his store since Kang had fulfilled the conditions, asking what he needed. Kang requested a two-handed tower shield. The Lost King opened the gold door and presented the shield, which was typically only available on the 7th floor in easy mode, but was now accessible on the 1st floor in solo mode. Its price was 500 gold, but Kang only possessed 243 gold. Determined to acquire it, Kang planned to hunt 7 more big rats. However, to his astonishment, the Lost King decided to give it to him for free. Not only that, the Lost King also gathered numerous potions, which were worth 250 gold to present it to him. This act was far different from what Kang had heard from Lee Tai-yoon's experience. When Kang inquired about the reasons behind this generosity, the Lost King simply stated that it was an investment, without further explanation. The items consisted mostly of liquid potions that enhanced offensive power and speed. Among other effects, while these were necessary for clearing the labyrinth, Kang felt that weapons were more urgent for his needs. This decision would save him from future troubles. He sold the rat leather and used the proceeds to purchase a bow and arrows. Observing the Lost King's expression, Kang realized that he was completely different from the future information he had received. The Lost King, aware that stamina could not be easily replenished in the labyrinth, shared the location of the Fountain of Life, which could prove useful to Kang. Previously, when Lee Tai-yoon had requested the same information, the Lost King had treated her with contempt. Kang wondered what had caused this change in behavior. Could it be because of his successful hunt of the big rat? Something Lee Tai-yoon had not accomplished. Kang also acquired certain skills that were only attainable at levels 20 and 40 in easy mode, even though he was still on the first floor. With a clear goal in mind, Kang forged ahead. As he neared the Fountain of Life, a group of big rats gathered and ambushed him. The odds were stacked against him. He has witnessed countless players who had met their demise due to unforeseen circumstances. Utilizing his shield, he halted the aggressive charge of a big rat and struck back, dealing significant damage. Employing this technique, he defeated two more big rats, thereby increasing his level and enhancing his stats. When only one big rat remained, he unleashed a final blow. Afterward, he ventured into the Fountain of Life, where he received rewards for being the first to discover it. Monsters lurked throughout the labyrinth, except within the confines of the shop and this particular spring, which served as a safety zone. Drinking from the fountain provided a refreshing relief, akin to a restful night's sleep. His physical condition was fully restored, but the inevitable mental fatigue urged him to take a rest. The next day, he decided to explore the community. Most of the articles were authored by players in solo mode, as they lacked the ability to communicate directly with others. As he scrolled through the posts, he stumbled upon one from Lee Tai-yoon, the strongest player, who had always exuded confidence, appeared surprisingly confused. If you could see her status window, she could have been a coward who hid her true self until the end. It had been a day since the labyrinth opened, and a month remained before the full-scale entry of solo players, meaning many individuals should still be alive at this point. Solo mode offered a reward system that scaled with difficulty. Despite Lee Tai-yoon missing out on numerous rewards and employing unfair tactics to defeat bosses, she still held the title of the strongest player. The protagonist shared the basic strategy for the first floor of solo mode with others, hoping that many more members would survive beyond just Lee Tai-yoon. After publishing the post, he summoned the raw meat from the slain big rat and consumed it. Unfortunately, this resulted in food poisoning, a nightmare for inexperienced players. Food poisoning would decrease their statistics for 2 days, and without constant intake of healing potions, death was imminent. Seeking a remedy, he drank from the spring, instantly curing the food poisoning and restoring his body to its optimal condition. Repeating this process several times, he acquired a new skill called disease resistance, a valuable asset for consuming raw materials in solo mode. Subsequently, he immersed himself in the spring, holding his breath near the brink of death, acquiring two skill, apnea and line of death. Apnea would aid in breathing in toxic environments. Although he had possessed the line of death skill previously, its proficiency remained the same as in their past experiences. The protagonist was certain that mental skills were inherited, and within the labyrinth, not everything could be explained through reason alone. Determined to acquire more skills, he continued on his journey. Subscribe to witness the next part of Kang's ascension to the second floor.